Hey Hexers, Function here to interrupt your regularly scheduled broadcast to bring you my first countdown. Don't worry, it won't be the last, and it also won't be the final one. Alright, I'm going to go down my list of top 10 goblin cooking pot recipes. At number 10, we've got orc foot fondue. It's a common dish as far as goblin cooking pots go. Add a little oregano, and you're good. You can dip like some cheese in it, or some strawberries, or some chocolate, or you can even dip your own foot in there and get the gooey goodness all up in your toes. Yeah, no. That's not what we're really doing this video about. It's top 10 commons with a focus on limited. Alright, so, what am I going to say? This might be a little controversial. So far, roughly only 52 comments have been spoiled. You can expect that we still have a ton left to get spoiled from Cryptozoic. But, yeah. But Function, all the spoilers aren't done yet. There's still so many cards. You're wasting your time. Wah! No, I do what I want. However, I will revisit this once we've got some more spoilers out, once the whole set's released, and once I've actually got some drafting underneath my belt. I expect that many of the weaker cards, maybe the ones that are the 10 through 7 slot, won't even be on the list once we've got some more knowledge. But hey. There's many factors that go into what takes your first pick, pack 1 of a draft. You've got to always remain flexible. Having a good idea of what might be the strongest cards is definitely a good way to start. And even if you're not taking one of these cards first pick, if you're taking a card of a particular color, well, you should know what other strong commons are going to be in that color, because they might be heading your way in the next packs. Without further ado, let's get to the card at the top of the list. Starting us off at number 10, we've got Oracle Song. Oracle Song is a pretty straightforward card for 3 shards. Yeah, shards. That's what the cool kids are calling the cost now. So anytime I say shards, I'm referring to the cost. So for 3 shards and a blue threshold, you get this basic action, which lets you draw 2 cards. Yeah, going back on that real quick, it'd be nice to, like, saying 3 mana, that doesn't work, because this isn't mana. It's 3 shards. That's what everybody's calling it now. Done. I said so. Anyways, for 3 shards and a blue threshold, you get this basic action, which lets you draw 2 cards. I do kind of wish that they took away the target functionality from it, because it does say target champion draws 2 cards. That might be a little awkward or confusing to new players. They might, I mean, it really, you're never going to target your opponent with it, although in PvP you could target one of your allies, so leaving it on there does make it kind of interesting. We haven't talked a lot about PvE yet, but I will probably in the next couple videos. While Oracle Song does technically give you card advantage in that you're getting 2 cards for the price of 1, it doesn't really affect the board state. I highly doubt that Oracle Song will still be on this list 2 months from now. Putting in the top 10 is kind of awkward, and I wouldn't really be happy first picking it. I don't expect that I really ever would. There's always going to be something better. It just seems strange to commit to Sapphire just for this card. But it isn't a bad card. If it is in my deck, I'll probably always be playing it. It's always going to be a decent one, just maybe not first pick. So, I did have this one and Savage Raider tied at number 10, but I didn't want to break my rules and cop out and have them tied or have like a 11th card. But I guess I'm copping out by just mentioning it. I figured I'd at least cover my bases there. Alright, so next up, coming in at number 9, is Glimmer Glenn Witch. It's a 3 shard, 1 wild threshold troop with 3 attack and 3 defense. Furthermore, when it comes into play, you gain 3 life. That's not bad. It's on curve, being a 3/3 creature for 3. That's always something really important to consider for a draft. And it has added value. It just gives you 3 life. I'm always a fan of value creatures, especially when they're on curve. It will stop all the 2 power attackers in their tracks. There's a lot of 2 power attackers, especially at the 1 and 2 drop slot. So playing this turn 3, if you're playing a wild deck, is going to put you in really good shape to start playing big bomby creatures later on, which is probably what most wild decks are going to be doing. With that said, I might actually be underrating how good this card is. If the card revolves, or if the format revolves around 2 power creatures, suddenly this guy is going to be a lot better. 3 cost, you're going to be getting it out pretty quick. It's hard to know without knowing how fast the format is or what the life gain interactions are. With that said, I don't think I'd be the happiest camper first picking this, but I'd still be picking it second if I was already in green after pick 1. Makes sense, you want to stay in your colors, and this will help you get there. Next up is number 8, a Kraken Guard Mariner. Now this is an interesting card. It's 1 shard, 1 diamond threshold troop, and it's got the Inspire mechanic. Inspire works like this. As another troop with cost equal to or greater than this troop's cost enters play, under your control, it gets a buff or an effect. In this case, the Mariner gives incoming troops a permanent +1 defense. That's important to understand. You're not ever buffing the Mariner himself, you're only buffing the incoming troops, the ones you play after he's already on the board. In this case, the Mariner is more of a defensive card. Its ability is going to help you maybe block more 2-power blockers, like I was already saying, if you're buffing a 2 defense creature. It's also going to set you up to potentially dodge removal, or dodge combat tricks even. Yeah, your guys could potentially just become immune to the removal they have if it's all damage based. The more Inspire troops you have, the better he is, so don't be afraid to pick him up early if there's nothing else that catches your eye. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily happy first picking him, and I probably wouldn't, but this is going to be more of a card where if he fits your deck, you're going to grab him right away, because otherwise he's going to be hard to come by. And also, 1-drops are always at a premium. Moving on, we've got an Inspiring Woman, that's right. We got number 7 is Ruby Pyromancer. She's a 2 shard, 1 ruby threshold troop, and she inspires other troops with cost 2 or higher, so that they gain +1 attack permanently. Yeah, that's the important part. All these things are permanent. That's a very nice thing about Hex too. I mean, they go to the graveyard, they're still going to have that +1 if somehow you bring them back. Now the Pyromancer is not going to help out any of your 1-drops, meaning the Mariner. If you play the Mariner after the Pyromancer's in play, nothing happens. But it does work the other way around. She's going to make everybody hit that much harder. All your other cards, everything that's not a 1-drop, she's going to buff them. A big thing to mention here is that if you have multiple creatures in your deck with keyword abilities like speed, swift strike, flight, any of that kind of stuff, they're going to benefit that much more from the Pyromancer. Giving all your flyers +1 attack is a pretty big deal, especially when you're also affecting the board state with by putting the Pyromancer in play, which is 2 attack, 1 defense. Nothing to laugh at. It's on curve if you're in an aggressive deck, which is, I mean, what we're talking about. We're talking about buffing flyers so that you can get in aggressively and finish off your opponent. I expect that you're still not going to be first picking her. If you're taking her, you're going to already have the flyers, like I was saying, but it's still a really strong card. It's one that, I mean, if it fits the deck, you're going to grab her when you see her, because she's definitely better than the Mariner in that sense. You're going to have a harder time grabbing her. Other people are going to be looking for it. Alright, now that we cleared that threshold, what's the next card on the list? We got hashtag number 6, or number 6, or, yeah, derp. Yeah, hashtag number 6 is this ugly monstrosity. Briar Legion is a 3-shard, single green threshold troop. It's our last wild card currently on the list, and it's definitely more than meets the eye. I think a few people might undervalue this initially. There's a few cases where it can actually be considered a 2-2, but by and large, it's actually a 3-3, and that's because the text in the box. When this troop enters play, each Briar Legion you own and all zones gets a permanent +1/+1. Now I can't say with any certainty that I know exactly how this works before we have official rules in our hands, but I think it's pretty reasonable to expect this one to buff itself when it comes into play, as well as any copies that are in your hand, graveyard, or deck, as well as any that are already in play. Furthermore, because it says own, if your opponent takes control of one of your own Briar Legions, I would also expect that that one would get buffed even though you don't currently control it. He's on curve, and I would rather pick Briar Legion than any other vanilla creature that's on curve but higher cost, because you're going to have Briar Legion, you're going to want him more than a 4/4 for 4, because potentially you're going to be getting this guy's a 3/3 for 3, and the next one's a 4/4 for 3, but also buffs this one. It's actually, I mean, this guy's strong. He's no joke. So, moving on, where was I? Each one that you make makes the next one that much better, and don't forget that in drafts, you could potentially have 4 copies in your deck. To play Devil's Advocate, this guy is worse than Glimmer Witch if you only have 1 of each. But if you're taking Briar Legion early, you're hedging your bets that you'll be able to pick up another 2 or 3 copies. I wouldn't be surprised if I first pick Briar Legion from time to time. Expect many people to undervalue it early on, because they may not understand that how he works, or that they might think he's just a 2/2. So don't be too surprised if you see him wheel. Grabbing 2 or 3 shouldn't be very difficult. Alright, we're past the halfway mark, and it might start getting boring from here on out, because I think the picks are pretty straightforward. The order may be a little bit arguable, but yeah. The number 5 slot, we've got our only artifact on the list, Sappers Charge. Removal is always at a premium in limited formats, and Sappers Charge is not to be underestimated. It's a 1-shard artifact, so you can only put it into play during your own turn, but once it's in play you can use it at any point to blow up a weak creature. It's not to be underestimated. It kills every single 1 or 2 drop, and only 3 of the 3/3 drops that would be left standing, or yeah, only 3 would be left standing after being hit by this, so you could use it after combat or something like that and still kill a creature. Although, if your opponent's putting down cards that are easily killed by this, and you don't actually need to, if the board's already stabilized in your favor, don't just blow up a creature for no reason, because you could potentially kill a value troop that they play later, or you could still go to their face for 2 damage if it becomes relevant. One of the biggest things that Sappers Charge has going for it is that it has no threshold cost. It'll easily fit into any deck, and you're always going to play it if you have them. You're probably playing up to 2 or 3 copies if you have them. Don't forget that many blue and red cards synergize well with artifacts, so any of those dwarf cards, they're all going to benefit from you having artifacts in play, or many of them do. So that's another reason to pick this and value it higher, especially because blue doesn't have very much removal at its fingertips, so this is in a sense more of a blue card, even though it doesn't say so. Number 4 is our last diamond card, Inner Conflict. It's a 2-shard, 1 diamond threshold basic action. Target troop permanently can't attack or block. It works in many senses like a constant does, but that is one of the beautiful things about Hex. This card is permanent. So you put it on a troop, that card is permanently nullified, even if it is shuffled into opponent's deck. If the target has an activated ability or triggered one like the Inspire mechanic, it will still serve that purpose, but it won't be able to attack or block, which is a pretty big deal. This is a great card, and you definitely shouldn't be afraid to first pick it. Oftentimes you probably will be. Next up, at number 3, we have Thunderbird! Oh, this one is sweet. If it wasn't for this sweet card, the top 4 would be nothing but removal, but it's nice to see that a troop can crack the top 5. This card, I really like this. Thunderbird is a 2-shard, 2 sapphire threshold flyer, threshold flyer, and it's got a 1/1 with rage, meaning that it's actually really a 2/1. The first time it attacks, it's going to automatically become a 2/1, and from there on out, it's going to continue growing. No joke, this could potentially end games on its own. If you're picking this card, be forewarned, you're making a pretty heavy sapphire commitment. If you first pick this, it's definitely possible that you get cut and it doesn't make your deck because of the 2 blue threshold. If you're getting cut blue cards, you're not going to be able to make the commitment. You win some, you lose some, but this is definitely a pretty high pick, and for a common, I would almost say it's a borderline bomb. Next up, we've got Burn. The last 2 picks here were incredibly close, and after spending hours debating which I could first pick, I was still about to change my mind at the last minute, but I didn't. These are both cards which I've already featured in my 2 different deck techs. They're definitely constructed viable. It might be pretty cut and dry for you, which you might take here, pick one of pack 1, but for me, these 2 are incredibly close. Number 2 is Burn. Burn is a quick action which costs 1 shard and 1 ruby threshold. It deals 2 damage to target champion or troop, very similarly to Sappers Charge. Alright, like we already mentioned, 2 damage kills a lot of the troops out there. Go look. I mean, really, go look at the database. You might be surprised. There's a lot of 2 toughness troops out there. It also costs 1, which is why we rate it higher than Sappers Charge. This card is fast. That's why we're picking it. You get a huge advantage by killing someone's 3-drop with this and then attacking. This is what makes it the most efficient removal spoiled so far. You will more than likely be taking this card more often than you are taking a rare or one of the uncommons in the pack. Burn is legit. It's the real deal. It was a close call. I knew it in my gut though. If I put it at number 1, I'd get burned. and I'd rather get burned than get murdered. Yeah! Number one card on our list of top commons is Murder. Where burn is efficient, Murder is versatile. I expect Murder to probably still be number one pick after we have everything spoiled. At 3 cost and 1 blood threshold, it comes down a little slower, but it gets the work done. As mentioned in my previous video, destroy target troop attached to a quick action is something you want to keep an eye out for. Now the real reason that I was hesitant to put Murder at number 1 is that you'll notice Murder is the only blood card on my list, and I'm unsure how many more cards would be on the list if I was doing a top 20. I really honestly only expect there would be one more card. If Murder was 2 threshold, it might not even be in the top 2. I want to stress again though, that I'm working off what we've had spoiled so far. From what we have seen spoiled, blood is very shallow. Luckily, this is totally a splashable card. It's only 1 threshold. With that being said, being able to deal with your opponent's like bomb troop is really important. Burn might not be able to kill everything. This pretty much can. There might be some that can avoid it if they have spell shield or some fancy mechanic, but Murder will get the job done. Alright, so there you have it. Please subscribe and like my channel if you enjoyed the video. I want to give another thanks and shout out to Chemical, who's been hard at work on a top-notch database which can be found at hex.potionofwit.com. Stay tuned for more quality content coming your way, and maybe even another exotic goblin cooking pot recipe. Less fail, more function.